So everyone is picking Alex Pereira in this weekend's matchup, and I was on the fence with this one. I was about to pick him, but I looked into this matchup and there is a clear path for Israel. Israel should be the favorite, and if you're on the side of Alex with confidence, here's why you might be wrong. When you actually look at the way these two match up stylistically, you remove the narrative and you just go fighter 1, fighter 2, you are kind of crazy to call Alex Pereira the favorite. And here's why. The narrative has a lot of people saying, oh, well, Alex has beat Israel 3 times now. Alex clearly has his number. He's clearly the better fighter in the matchup. I bet you a lot of the people saying that have never watched more than 10 seconds of their first 2 kickboxing matches. That's why I want to include some key points from their kickboxing matches very quickly, just to paint the narrative of how those fights actually went to you guys. So even if you still want to pick Alex at the end of the day, you'll at least understand those 2 fights didn't exactly go how I thought they did. UFC champions who are fighting another champion in their rematch, like they're fighting the person that beat them, their record so far in the UFC is 3 wins and 13 losses. All of those contenders who beat those champions had to fight their way up through the stacked UFC rankings, deal with wrestlers, deal with strikers, train wrestling, train striking. They had to do all of that stuff in order to be able to fight for the championship. Alex Pereira didn't have to do all that stuff, so that's something that you want to keep in mind and not necessarily just take that crazy stat and apply it blankly to this one, because there are still big holes in Alex's game. A big point laid out against Israel is that Alex beat him in the first 2 kickboxing matches. If we're going to use those first 2 kickboxing matches in the equation for this one, let's at least do it right. So I watched both of their kickboxing matches back multiple times without the commentary, and I was actually surprised myself a little bit at how much better Israel was in certain areas and how much better Alex was in certain areas than I previously thought. The first round of their first kickboxing match was relatively equal. I would personally edge it to Izzy. Right away you start to see where each of the fighters prefers to take it. Israel wants to keep you fully extended at the end of his jab, constantly touching your glove to maintain his distance and to blind you, and then he wants to throw more than one shot at a time to sort of blind you, make you think, and land up and hit you with the 3rd, the 4th. Those are the real damage shots, whereas Alex, his best work by far was just a little bit closer in the range, because you got to remember his most favorite tool and his most effective tool is that counter left hook, or even his left hook in general. And in order to land the left hook, you do have to be a little bit closer than where Israel can do most of his work, which is jabs. Not to call it point fighting, but it's certainly more of a point fighting style than Alex. Alex wants to really go in for the kill in his shots, and in order to do that, you got to be just a little bit closer. And you really saw that a lot in the first match. Israel was doing better at it than Alex was in terms of maintaining the distance, because Israel is trained and built his whole style around his footwork, right? And his movement, his head movement. He'll make you think he's going one way to get you to move, and then he'll quickly circle off the other way, get himself back to the open ring. The judges technically scored this fight for Alex, so they couldn't have done that if he had no moments himself. But watching it back, and if you don't believe me, go do it yourself later, Israel clearly won the 2nd round, and Israel clearly won the 3rd round. That fight should have gone to Israel. It was actually very surprising that it went to Alex. So much so that they had to force an immediate rematch. They didn't go fight other people first. The organizers of Glory wanted to run that one right away back, and that's what they did. So I want to look at what adjustments were made between the first fight and the second kickboxing fight to sort of get an idea of how these 2 fighters are evolving when they're matching up against each other. So round 1, right away, you can see an increased aggressiveness from Alex Pereira. He knows he wants to get that finish and corner Izzy off first. He clearly learned that out in the open is a really difficult time against Izzy. So you see him using a lot more leg kicks and a lot more forward pressure to try and get Izzy cornered up against the ring, where he can just unload his heavy shots on him. And he did that to better success in the first round of the second fight. Me personally, I could see how you could score this first round for Alex, though a lot of people say Izzy still won the first round. It was close because Izzy got cornered against the ring. It's not like he had no success. He was able to get off. He was able to even use some clinching and kickboxing to sort of stunt Alex's momentum in those times, get himself back to the open ring. And yet again in this one, you can clearly see when these 2 are at distance and Israel is at his full distance, his speed beats Alex's timing and power. It just does. It's a gift that Israel has. Alex has that X factor of his power. Israel has that X factor of his speed and his movement. So you can see him taking advantage of that, making it so where Israel won the first round. But again, to me personally, I'll be honest, I think Alex might have edged that one in my opinion, but it was very, very close regardless. Round number 2, Israel really started to run away with this. He was peppering up Alex, switching southpaw back to orthodox, back to southpaw, throwing strikes from both of those stances. And the biggest thing that I noticed was Alex needs to get sort of set up before he can unleash on you. And Israel was doing a really good job at not allowing him to get set up. Every time he would go into be in position to start throwing his hooks, Israel was off to the side. Israel was switching stances. Israel was catching him with a leg kick or a body kick. Izzy did a very good job of that especially in the second kickboxing fight. And leading up to the end of the second round, Izzy actually hurt Alex so bad where he got a standing 10 count, which in boxing means, oh shit, like if this was MMA, he would have jumped on you and probably finished you. Sometimes it's a little early, but Alex was genuinely hurt at the end of that second round. Izzy was probably feeling pretty good going into that third round. And that's where it all went to shit for him. Alex came out that third round like an absolute animal, just relentlessly cornering Izzy, relentlessly throwing his volume, arguably at a pace that he could not continue for all 3 of those kickboxing rounds, which is why he broke it out in the third. But it proved to just be too much for Izzy at that time. Alex was beating him up, not just one lucky left hook, don't let people say that. Alex was dominating that third round, and then it ended pretty early into the third round where he caught Izzy with a beautiful left hook that sent him to the ground, gave him the oxygen bag, which was a little unnecessary. He got up like right away, so that's also an unfair stipulation on Izzy. It was still pretty bad knockout, and credit to Alex because that was not lucky. That was his style beating Izzy's style. His style was to close the distance and land deadly shots on you until you can't take it anymore, and that's what ended up winning that fight for him. So that being said, if you take a look back now at the 2 kickboxing fights, if you're being honest, Israel won the first, but if you're being honest, of course, Alex won the second. Don't let the narrative of people saying, oh, well, Alex has beat Israel twice already, now he's beating him a third time in MMA, there's no way he beats him the fourth time. It's just really not true. Israel was winning the first and should have won it. Israel was winning the second until he got stunned and put out. That just shows how closely matched these 2 guys are. So now let's quickly go through their first MMA fight, not stretch on any point for too long, but just to again really refresh your memory on what actually happened and how this fight actually went down, their first MMA fight. Round 1 starts, very close round. Alex and Israel both at a slower pace than their first 2 kickboxing fights. I mean, it makes sense. Their first 2 kickboxing fights were only 3 rounds each. This fight is actually 5-minute rounds, so they both have to pace themselves a little more. That would favor the side of Israel a little bit because he's had those championship fights. He's gone the distance. Alex has never had to fight that long until this one, right? So they were both very closely matched. Immediately you can see the same range battle happening again. Israel wanting to keep him on the edge of the jab, trying to use his jab to disguise his other shots. Alex doing a better job at cornering Israel back behind the black line of the octagon so that the fence is right behind him. He's trying to limit the ability for Israel to back up quickly or to duck to one side or another and use the fence as a trap to corner him into a big power shot. And he did a good job at that. Alex had some good moments in the first round. Israel had some good moments in the first round. Very close first round, but Israel ends up landing a beautiful combo at the very final sequence, which edged him the round, gave him the round 1-0. Izzy was constantly touching Alex's gloves, trying to get a judge of his distance. Alex was doing a better job at sort of not allowing Israel to do that. He understands that's what Israel is most comfortable at, is setting the distance and then following it up and not allowing you to enter even a little bit past that because he knows that's where the favor is in your side. Round number 2 was very close again. This time we see Izzy mixing in clinch work a little bit more, and something I want to point out is just how much better he was in the clinch position. He was able to reverse Alex at several times in the clinch. He was able to manhandle and hold Alex up against the cage. He did try a takedown attempt, which he was unable to do, and I'm sure it zapped his gas tank quite a lot, but overall he showed to be the better fighter in those exchanges. However, Alex was landing a lot of body shots and a lot of shots up and close in there, which I'm sure accumulated a lot, but overall you saw a relatively close match. I would say Pereira was starting to get just a little bit better of the edge on the striking side of things. Israel was starting to even it up with the clinch work. Alex was scoring even while in the clinch, so it wasn't necessarily all that great on the side of Israel. And then we see Alex do a beautiful takedown where he runs through, turns the corner, gets Israel down to end the round and steals him that round. So we're now going 1-1 into the third, and I see a lot of why Israel's going to win in the third and fourth round here. In the third round, you see Alex come out a little bit slower. Israel able to control that distance and really keep the fight where he wants it in the open octagon space a lot more, to the point where Alex even tried to shoot his own little takedown, which got reversed, let Israel get on top of him. And this is something that you should take such big account of. How well did Alex do at getting back up when he was on the ground? Not very good at all. He was able to use wrist control and strong positional awareness to ride Alex out for that entire round. If Israel had trained that a little bit more, he potentially could have found himself getting a rear naked choke, but I'm not even going to go there. We'll just take it for what it was. He was able to ride Alex out. Alex showed to be very lacking once he gets to the ground. Alex has had decent takedown defense in this fight up until this point, which is credit to him. It's hard to take down a guy that size, regardless of their technical awareness, especially when you're not like a homegrown wrestler like Israel. But once he did get taken down, Israel showed shown he was much better in that position, right? It wasn't luck. You can watch what Israel is doing, constantly getting wrist control, constantly taking away Alex's post as he's trying to get up, and also draining Alex's gas tank even further. A thing I want to point out is Alex's very first MMA fight, he lost to a rear naked choke. He got taken down, could not get back up, got rode out for a little bit, and then the guy got the sub on him. Since that fight, he's not fought any capable grapplers or anybody who's really been able to even take him down since that fight. I mean, he's got taken down once or twice by some really mediocre fighters who he was able to get back up on, but his entire UFC rise, they just gave him strikers, and the reason for that is the UFC knew if they give this guy a guy who can wrestle, there's a good chance he's going to lose that fight. So my point being, I'm sure he's been training in on his rise to MMA. Of course he would be training that, but there's a difference between training it and getting it in fight experience, and Alex had up till that point very limited experience being on the ground with somebody with even mid-level grappling knowledge on top of you. It showed so much in that exchange. Heading into the fourth, another clear round for Israel. This time he did a lot more of his work striking. Alex seemed to be even more tired than the third, and I thought at this point Israel was going to run away with this fight. So did the live odds. Izzy became like a -400 at that point. It looked to be pretty much written in stone that Alex was slowing down. Israel wasn't. Israel was outlanding him on the feet. Alex was having a difficult time finding his range and finding Israel back up towards the octagon where he can do his best work, and realistically he was getting pieced up a good amount. Not to say he didn't land his own shots at all, of course, but it was a clear Israel round regardless. And at the end of the fourth round, it really seemed like, okay, Israel's probably going to win this fight. To me, it seemed like Alex was pacing his cardio, knowing that the entire fifth is coming and knowing that he needs to be able to go absolute all out in the fifth to get the finish, because that's been the way he's beaten Israel in the past. He probably knows deep down he didn't win that first fight. He knows he was close to losing that second fight before he got the finish. So he knows in his heart he's got to finish Israel Adesanya. Another key thing to point out from round 4 was Israel was able to control Alex in the clinch even more than he did earlier in the fight. I attribute that to Alex being a little more tired. Both of them would be, but Alex cuts like 40 pounds before these fights. That takes a big toll on your ability to fight really hard for the entire 5 rounds. And it looked to be like Israel was the stronger man of the two, which I would be shocked if that actually is the case. I think a lot of it is positional awareness and maybe where Alex was at cardio-wise in that time. But regardless, Israel was able to control those clinch exchanges excellently for that 4th round, also landing the better striking, which secured him the round. Now he was up 3-1 on all the judges' scorecards going into the 5th. In the 5th round, this is where it all sort of went downhill for Izzy, right? Any Izzy fanboy who had an Izzy bet, they started crying at this current time because Alex came out looking exactly like he did in round 3 of their second kickboxing match. He was basically running at Izzy while throwing his hooks, while throwing leg kicks, and just doing his absolute best like a sprint to get Israel out of there. And it's not something he can keep up for the entire fight, but when he's doing it, it's really, really hard to deal with, and he's shown to do that in the kickboxing fight, and he's shown to do that here. And what ends up happening was at the start of the round, Israel was getting backed up, but he was able to do a little bit of clinching. He was able to circle off. It was looking like maybe he'd be okay for about the first minute, and then Israel went to throw a leg kick. He got it checked, seemed to affect him badly where he did a little roll, and he actually rolled himself to where his back was up against the cage. Alex essentially sprinted over at him, did a little bit more work there, but where it really started to go down was he landed like a 3-hook piece combo, a left, a right, another left, and that pretty much put Izzy out on his feet. He was dazed, he was stumbling. Alex saw that, went in for the kill, and got him out of there relatively quickly from there. So all of that being said, and this is why I wanted to really go through at least as quickly as I can the first 3 fights, is it's unfair to look at that narrative of, oh, Alex just has his number, Alex is just the better fighter. In the first fight, Israel should have won. The second fight was close, but Israel was edging it out up until he got finished. The third fight, Israel was strongly edging it out before he got finished. Most importantly, I just want to look at where each fighter is better at clearly from all the footage that we have on them two fighting each other now. So my big takeaways is they both have areas where they can dominate over each other. In the open octagon, at range, Israel's very clearly the better fighter there. Israel is also very clearly the faster fighter. Israel also is able to switch stances, pivot off his movements, and throw really fast counters from different spots in the octagon than Alex can. But on the side of Alex, when he hits you, it has far more impact. You could say he only has to be perfect for 30 seconds, whereas Israel has to be perfect for 25 minutes. He's got the size and he's got the strength advantage. So if he's able to brush up on his grappling even a little bit, it could change change everything on his side as well. So I can see that side there too. So I do understand why some people would pick Alex. The range battle is always going to be in effect. It was in effect throughout all three of their fights. And really when it broke down is when Israel lost the range battle, and his clinch failed him. When he tried to shut Alex down, Alex broke off of that, hit him with a couple shots. He was 2 days to break off, and he got finished. Alex showed very poor grappling IQ in a lot of the exchanges. He even went for a leg lock, which he essentially gave up the ability to get up at one point, I believe in the 4th round. Same thing Ciryl Gane did where he lost his fight. And the biggest thing I see there is how easily Israel was able to just use wrist control, keep removing his post, and just hold him down for that entire 3rd round. That is something that I take so heavily in this fight because I've seen Israel do a lot of takedown offense training. That's key. We used to always see Israel's camp work on grappling. It was usually the guys running into them and them trying not to get taken down with their back up against the cage. All of the footage I'm seeing of Israel now is him trying to shoot double legs, him trying to be effective and efficient at getting people down. If he can improve that even a little bit, and he can get one more session of riding Alex out, making him fear submissions, landing ground and pound, that could be the key difference in this matchup. That changes so much because it's an area that Israel has the key advantage in. Striking, they both have their moments, but on the ground, very clearly, Israel is the stronger fighter there. I know that's funny because Israel has never been like that in almost any of his other matchups. Alex isn't like your normal MMA prospect who just made it to the top. He was fast rushed through the entire rankings very quickly, barely had to fight any grapplers. He's not going to have that much wrestling cardio and knowledge on the ground, and that's a big area where Israel can exploit him going into this fight. You have the strength, the momentum, the UFC stats and curse of the champions getting a rematch going on his side. Then you have Israel, who's the faster fighter, who's been put down twice now out of their last 2 fights. It's such a hard fight to pick with confidence on either side. The reason I wanted to really lay it out in my video here is because I think people are picking Alex too confidently. So if you still want to pick Alex after watching all that, go ahead. I don't fault you. There's a very good case for him to win this. I'm picking Israel Adesanya still. I think this will be his try where he actually gets it done. Israel, to me, he could get him down and he could win with a finish. He could get a rear naked choke, which is actually my prediction. He can get him down and ride him out. He can get him down and potentially submit him. He can also win on decision at a higher likelihood, in my opinion, because his style allows him to get more shots off. His footwork is very hard to deal with, and Alex can't fight at that 5th round pace for the entire fight. So I see Israel as more likely to win on decision. I see him having a good chance at winning at finish. I wouldn't say more likely. Whereas Alex, to me, I'd be shocked if he wins on a decision. To me, if he wins, it's going to be another finish situation where he catches Israel, hurts him, either a flatline KO or another TKO. Not necessarily in the 5th. Maybe Alex comes out at a higher pace and could even get it done earlier for all I know. Depends on how he wants to approach this fight. I see Israel's having more paths to victory in this one, and I like what I see on the side of him training that takedown offense. I see him being able to beat Alex in the earlier rounds, so I don't want him to use too much wrestling too early, but maybe try for a takedown or 2 in round 2, leave it for a little bit, and then round 5, I want to see him go full Khabib Nurmagomedov mode. I know he's not that good of a wrestler, but in terms of his game plan, I don't want you to play around with Alex on the feet in round 5, Izzy. I want you to take him down and just lay on him or go for submission attempts on top. And by that time, he'll be at his most tired state, and I think his lack of grappling knowledge on the ground will show. From a betting side, I'm going to be hedging my Israel bets if it gets to the end of it, of course. But gun to my head, if I had to pick one of these two to go in there and fight for my life, I'm picking Israel Adesanya. I think he's going to get it done this time, and then we're going to see the two do another rematch for a 5th total fight, or then maybe Alex will win that one. I'll assess that one based on how this one goes. Even if you disagree with me, I think it's always fun to listen to how other people are seeing these fights. If you want to see more of my content, click that subscribe button with your post notification bell on. I have a few more awesome videos planned for this week, and I'll actually be doing my very first UFC watch party during the entire fight card. So if you like that sort of stuff, you definitely come by, and I will see you guys in the next one.